Florida. That's right.
That's the truth. We were at the veranda having lunch, as cold as we could be. I got home before I came there. I'm not gonna freeze in here for another hour. Hey, Ben. How are you? Good.
How does it feel to be sitting back there? Because this sure feels weird sitting up here. That's right.
This must be very. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. It's a minute or so past 2, so I want to welcome everyone today. Thank all of you for coming. Hopefully we'll. Thank you. I'd like to welcome you all today. Thank you all for coming. Let's go ahead and begin our meeting with a moment of silence, please. Thank you. The first item, or the next item, excuse me, on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. You'll have a motion from someone to approve the agenda. Got a motion by Tom. Do we have a second? Suzanne seconds. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Hi.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have the approval of the minutes of our June 4, 2022 meeting. Those minutes were circulated by email last week. And does anyone have any questions or comments or suggestions regarding the minutes as originally drafted? Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the June 14th meeting?
I move to approve the minutes of the June 14th, 2022 meeting.
We have a motion by Jane. Do we have a second? Second by Amy. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, we'll deal with, we've got on the agenda old business. And since the last meeting, the board has formally now approved funds for the bridge, for bridge reconstruction for, hey, come on in, Robin, there's a seat right there. For phase 1, right, Ben? That's in approximately 106,000, as I recall, or 110,000. Okay. Okay. All right. And which brings us to I think a good point to in front of each of you is a handwritten report by Barry Creason, who could not be here. I met with Barry yesterday and I thought we'd go through this. And it also sort of incorporates the interim repair work we'll talk about in the next first item of new business. But in terms of what we do with the existing $110,000 of funds for what we've been calling phase 1, it appears that what Barry is now recommending is that he can do all of that work in-house and do it as repairs, characterizing it as repairs rather than rebuild or reconstruction. There are several advantages of this. The main advantage is that basically as a bridge repair, it will have a general permit. I assume a general permit, which referred to as a general permit from the Army Corps of Engineers. And so there'll be no need for any individual permit for this, which saves a lot of time and expense. What this approach would involve, if everyone will recall, the engineers, Mattern and Craig, in their initial report in phase 1 recommended cutting down the width of the bridge Barry's conception is that there's really no safety need to cut down the width of the bridge. We'll leave the bridge that intact as it is and simply repair the head walls to the bridge, which are in need of repair. And this diagram is sort of attached to Barry's comments, and you'll see some of the initial areas where rot needs to be repaired. But Barry's idea is simply let's repair that as needed year by year. We've got quite a number of the shaded panels there and some of the studs that need to be worked on. But essentially, he can do that. He believes that he can get most of that done during the fall and winter timeframe, so that we can get to springtime and he'll be basically largely completed with all the head wall repair. Now, that's not rebuilding completely the head walls. That's simply replacing the rotten head walls that we've got. There'll be a need for some future replacement in future years, but it'll be done on an incremental basis rather than trying to rebuild the entire bridge, which is in line with a communication Barry just sent to us. And this is breaking news. I just saw this 30 seconds ago or 2 minutes ago, but NCDOT has now declassified our bridge as a bridge under their jurisdiction. It's no longer a vehicular bridge. It's simply a pedestrian bridge. And I'll read the email to you he got from NCDOT, just letting you know that the structure will no longer be in our inventory. It is now pedestrian only, and the Federal Highway Administration only funds vehicular structures. If you open this back up to vehicles in the future, please let us know and we can add it back. In the future, you may want to ask the firm inspecting your bridges what it would cost to inspect it, or you could find someone else to give it a look. So they'll no longer have it on their inventory. They'll no longer be, frankly, inspecting it because it's not a vehicular bridge. And makes perfect sense. And so, which leaves us, going back to the agenda, which leaves us in a slightly different situation than we started out where we were thinking. So we've got the status of funds, $110,000 approved. We've also got grants request. Ben, is there any change in status of our grant request? I know we've. Chairman, we did apply for a grant, actually 2 grants.
The town applied for 2 grants. One was through the French Broad River Metropolitan Planning Organization. That was granted. Drawback to that grant is that the funding won't begin until October 2026. So that's the downside of that. We did submit another grant, Buncombe County, under its COVID relief recovery funding.
Yeah.
We did not make the first round that was awarded, I believe, in late July. However, we are still in competition for funding, and we will get notification per Buncombe County representatives sometime in late January, early February.
Okay, thank you. So we don't know I guess where we're at here, we've got $110,000 in the budget. Barry will not need anywhere near that amount. We don't know exactly what it's going to be, but by doing all the work in-house, he's not going to need, and by not cutting down the sides of the bridge. And this, just in the new business a little bit, they've just done a great job with the existing repairs that they've done. But so we're not going to be in a position to need to spend nearly not the vast majority of that $110,000. One thing this committee could decide to do is to utilize some of those funds to perhaps look at a phase 2 or portion of phase 2. For example, the rock columns that Jim recommended and had the drawing of with the bears might be something we could work within that budget. Obviously anything we did would need to be approved by council, but there's money to utilize this year in addition to the money that is going to be utilized by Barry. So there's some enhancements to the basic repair work that we can do that are in the budget that would need to be approved by the town council. That's something we can take a look at. That would be certainly a big improvement to the bridge between now and 2006, when we will get funds to do further improvements at that time. Is that everybody? I apologize for stuttering, but it's all, most of this is brand new information, and I'm trying to adjust it. But that's sort of the way I see it. I don't know exactly what it's going to cost Barry, but I doubt he's going to spend more than $20,000 on materials. I'm just guessing, and so that's going to leave a huge chunk of money. Ben?
I would concur with your comments, Mr. Chairman. In my conversations with Public Works Director Priestman, he's estimating the in-house work coming in less than $30,000.
Okay. All right. So if that's the case, then we've got up to $80,000 in budgeted funds that we could use for some further improvements beyond the basic structural improvements that the town, the town staff will be making. And those can be block columns or whatever this committee might want to recommend, but all of that would be subject to the approval of the council. Are there any questions about that? Huh?
Yes, do we need to say where we're from?
No.
Two questions. One, how does this affect our grants? Because one is for is it the same, will it affect them at all? The fact that it's been classified as a footbridge. And two, where was Barry 7 years ago when we could do this as a repair?
Well,
I never even thought of that.
I didn't either. And actually Barry didn't go directly there. Barry started out wanting to sort of redo redo them and actually put, so as I recall, he was going to put metal behind the existing wood or something like that. He had his own idea. Then he met with a consulting engineer and basically said, no, you've got these signed and sealed plans. The best approach is just to do what they said, but don't call it new construction. Skip you don't have to fix the top. It's stable for pedestrian traffic. There's nothing wrong with it. Fix this and just continue to fix this rather than reconstruct it permanently. Call it repair. You skip the permitting, and I'm like you, Tom. I thought, well, why are we going in this very long circle? But that's where we are. In the trip.
If I'm, well, I think a lot of the issue dealt with financial, to be frank with you, this past year especially, and COVID came into play. But it's a very good point you make, Chris. But to answer your question about how will the designation affect the 2 grants that have been submitted, with the Buncombe County COVID relief, that grant was submitted under the application idea of it being outside recreation. So the designation of the bridge would not apply. With the LAMP grant that came through the French Broad River Metropolitan Planning Organization, that was for pedestrian use, which does apply under the transportation DOT guidelines.
Okay, any other questions? So I guess, the bottom line is that we're gonna, come springtime, we've got obviously a period of time, we probably need to get some sort of sentiment from the commission as to whether or not they'd be willing to allocate portion of the, let's just say $80,000 that's already budgeted to more than simply repairing the bridge, but to do some visual enhancements, recreational type aesthetic enhancements, which I don't think frankly they contemplated initially, but I think would be welcome to a majority of the members of the council. And if we get a favorable inclination, then it seems to me the business of this committee over the next 6 months need to be, okay, how do we spend all our portion of that $80,000, taking into account that in 2026 we're going to have an additional sum of money to spend on the bridge in the bridge area. Well,
feel like our committee's always. Things that we've suggested and proposed. It's like we put a lot of work. Barry's come up with something that seems brilliant. Didn't go through us, we didn't come up with it. And what he's created right now, I've got a lot of people telling me that's fine. They're happy with it. So one question is, do we need to spend more money? Is it fine the way it is? It's going to look different than we anticipated originally. It's not going to be narrower. Everything's changed. And maybe Barry has a couple of other ideas we haven't heard about. I just don't know what we're really contributing.
Well,
That's if what he's done is great already.
I had someone say to me today, I think it looks great, and I don't think that we need to try to raise money for people to spend. And we obviously are gonna have money, so I think they think it's really attractive now and are happy with it.
I think that's certainly an option, and it's certainly an option that the town can consider, and that we can call it quits if we like and say we're happy with it. Now, at the same time, I'll echo what members of the committee have said in the past, that it is a couple of things. One, it's a visual, special visual sort of place in Montreat that and whether we go the covered bridge approach or get the federal government money, which costs us nothing but gets us a share of our taxes back. So I mean, I hate to sound like I'm just spending money to just spend it, but I wouldn't be that, frankly. It's money that all of us are somehow getting back as a result of getting our share of federal money. I think creating a special recreational area with, that enhances what frankly right now is fine. Yeah, we can do without doing anything further, but if we can put stone columns, or if people prefer a covered bridge or whatever, that's something we can take a look at. But I'm happy to zip it up if that's the will of the committee. Yes.
I understand what Walter's saying. I don't know if there's a consensus at this point that we would rather leave it like it is or do a covered bridge, because a lot of people aren't educated about the options or what funding we might have. So I don't want to zip it up personally. I've been excited about it since the beginning, and I'm going back and remembering all the meetings that we had. And there was a 100% consensus that we want a covered bridge. I mean, there was not one person that came to those meetings that said, you know, I want to step back, I want to do this, I want to do that. I think all these options are doable. But I also think that within whatever budget we might have with grants or the town or combination thereof with the even doing minimal fundraising, or I think especially since we're doing this other work in-house and Barry's really stepping out to do that like he always does. I personally think that we can make that happen. And I think it's hard for a lot of people to visualize something until it's there. And I think it's adequate, but I feel like if, you know, we will know about COVID money from Buncombe County in the winter, and that will be timely as far as us. I don't think we should make a decision before we hear about that. I just think we need to have more discussion about that because I've been fired up about doing a covered bridge. It's not that I am fired up. I just feel like there's been a group, anybody that's been aware and been involved has been excited about it. And then we talked about the dedication to the Graham family. I mean, that's not a dedication what we have now. I don't think. And I just think it would, for a lot of reasons, because it's like the gate assembly, and it's sort of we don't have many opportunities to enhance the beauty with a structure that everybody would see. So
to be clear, I'm still for the covered bridge. I'm pointing out what people are telling, but
Just being a treasurer.
I do feel, I do think it's frustrating for our committee. We did come up with a great plan. And it's almost like it's just on the back burner forever. So I like what Barry's done, and I know people are gonna say that's fine. But can we still do a narrower bridge? Does it have to be the current width? Can we do what we originally wanted?
We can do an arrow bridge. I mean, we can do that with that 110,000. That's certainly possible. It's certainly possible.
Because I still think, I do think people don't know why we need a covered bridge, but then a lot of people ask me. But I do think that's what we've been working on. And I think what I'm trying to say is it's a little frustrating seeing Barry get out there and do something real quick that we haven't been able to do much. And I think if we had known he could have done that years ago, that would have been interesting.
And I don't know, frankly, I don't think Barry became involved in the process back then. I think that's part of the problem, but I'm just guessing. We only interfaced with Alex at the time. And didn't really talk to Barry directly, just Alex. And I think probably because Alex put the engineers, which was understandable. And they didn't, perhaps communicate with Barry and search out this possibility. I'm not sure. I don't have a good explanation.
I do think we as a committee will need to be able to answer the question. Why do we need to spend more money to create something when what's there is adequate? And this is Montreat. People are going to say, we don't need to spend that extra money.
Yeah. And I'm not suggesting we look to spend the $80,000, but I am suggesting we take a look at if there's an interim thing we can do with the free money that I don't suggest we do, that allows us to do something. And again, we have no number, so we don't, but say Rock Collins is gym design, and that would have put together and perhaps again something as we talked about a memorial to Dr. Green, which I think it's appropriate and at this stage something we really should consider as a town, and that's a great place to place that kind of memorial and to have, the, significant, improvements, rock improvements to the bridge to give it a total monthly look, I think would be great. That's just me.
One comment, so one is the covered bridge is. I'm not sure why it has to be narrow, why it can't be the same footprint. That's one thing. Covered bridge, there are other reasons for a covered bridge.
Mhm.
It's a meeting place in the
Mhm.
rain. It's a
Mhm.
place to get out of the rain. I mean, you could actually have, the gathering, there benches and stuff
Mhm.
inside. It'd be a nice little place. And the other thing is I'd love to use the money for the development of the rest of that area that hasn't been, over by the little concrete house. That's where I always thought the little park was. I was surprised when they put it where it is, which is fine. But there's that area over there too. You could make that whole area into a beautiful area. And the covered would give you the protection and additional needs.
And you could use the extra width if we keep the bridge the same width to do some benches along the side of it.
Right. Right.
And I've heard people say that they're not enough, and I'm not saying it's a quote meeting place, but it will become
be.
that for young people, for people, families playing at Welch Field, mothers and strollers trying to get out of the rain. That was talk, about renovating the Huckleberry. So people would have a place to, nice place to go and meet.
It's
So-
like the porch over what do you use? Wow, use that's what I'm. Right, it's out in the shelter. That would be it. I can see people, or you go to Lake Tomahawk, without that shed, you couldn't have any real events there.
Yeah. And also it rains here usually late afternoon. I mean, every year it doesn't do like it used to every single day, but late afternoon, people are out and, Montreat's full in the summer. So I'm sticking to pushing for a covered bridge. I just think there are a lot of benefits, not just the beauty, but functionality, piggybacking on what Tom said. And I do think expanding that area, I think the picnic tables, I mean, there wasn't consultation exactly on where they would end up, and there's been erosion and they've come back and tried to fix that. But I would definitely think that's higher ground and that there'd be a great opportunity to, nestle everything in and have this focal point, and it would blend in versus you got 5 or 6 picnic tables.
I like to compliment that mulch. God, I mean, that made it.
Yes.
I mean, that really was all about the mulch. That thing has.
One of the things would be important is if the covered bridge is put in, does the existing bridge bed have to be removed, or does it stay? Or is it got a lifespan? And can whatever Barry does, would there be any cost savings if we do it at the same time and doing additional work on the bridge?
My understanding, and we may, is that the covered bridge would be totally separate. The quote covered bridge is totally separate from the bridge. It's an effect of a cover on 4 posts that are not structurally interrelated with the actual bridge itself, the base surface. And so it will be supported by columns that are unrelated to the load-bearing structures to the bridge. So the head wall, for example, that he'll be replacing, all this bridge is basically is supported by this head wall. That head wall will not be supporting the bridge at all. And the cover of the covered bridge can be wider or narrower. It doesn't make any difference.
The reason I mentioned it is I think Jim brought this up last time. The idea of making sure we have a plan. That we're not doing two different things and spending more money than we need to, but that there is a goal. The overall plan. You
Is
don't have
one
to
and
do it all at the
two.
same time, but
Yeah.
they all fit together still.
Which, Jim, this is a good time. Can we invite your comments to, in additions to this discussion, if possible? And we're going to bring a mic for you, Jim.
Thank you. Well, excuse me. I'm not sure exactly what part of all this you wanted me to comment on.
Well, just looking at plans for, assuming Barry is going to do what he's going to do and simply repair the head walls, where we go from here, taking a look at both some possible short-term funds for the next year of up to $80,000, up to, but not necessarily near that. And as well as future funds, whether in 1926 or sooner, from a grant to do another phase of.
Well,
construction.
one thing I might just point out, pretty obvious, I guess, is that with the covered bridge approach, if the full width of the bridge is retained, that full width adds considerably to the cost of the covered portion of the bridge, because you have greater spans. You have to go, what is the width of that bridge now, would you say? Maybe 20, 30 feet, something like that?
I don't think it's that much.
It appears to be about 18 feet.
About 18, yeah. With the purely pedestrian approach that you all were talking about earlier, that width could be cut down considerably and some money saved there. So that's one thing to think about. The idea I suggested last time with the the Four Bear Bridge, probably a way to incorporate at least some of that into a covered bridge concept, if that was the way the group wanted to go. There again, the sketch that I showed you, I've got a copy if anybody wants to take another look, did not envision the full width, and so the proportions would have to be restudied there.
Okay. It sounds like one piece of information we need to know is and maybe get Barry to help us with or work with him on, is the option of narrowing the bridge or not. What do we think it's going to cost to narrow the bridge, and whether we would recommend that we do that? From Barry's perspective, it's not necessary. But it could be that it would be cheaper to narrow the bridge and save money on the cover, or it could be cheaper to just leave it as is, not demolish it, and simply spend a little bit more money on the cover. I don't know.
And also think of walking and meeting, because the wider, better for the meeting.
Right.
That's
Right.
exactly what I was thinking. If we
Mhm.
narrow it, one of the things that we're talking about is a meeting place and
Mhm. And if you have a couple of strollers and if you have benches, that takes up some of that inner space.
If we leave it as is, the width of the estimated cost of the cover. That's
We don't know that, Suzanne, but we will find that out. I can't imagine that a cover even for that is going to be more than on $60,000 or $70,000. I just can't imagine. That could be wrong.
I'm not a a builder or an architect, but when I think about it, it's not just the width, but it's the length. And then do you need something in the center, like another support, where instead of a support on two ends, would there be something in the middle that you'd have to add?
Yeah, it's not engineered and we, we do have it engineered for for the smaller, width. We don't have it engineered for the wider width, which again, but we don't have to come up with answers today.
Right.
But,
But for it to be functional, I think we need to leave it wide. Because, like you said, Robin, for the use of it.
Jim, did you have
Did
anything
you
further? to-
speak to that, Jim?
I was just, in response to the question about whether there could be intermediate supports or not. What I've understood from the engineering report is that you cannot add any more weight to that existing structure. So that was the reason that, up to this point, I think everybody's been thinking about a clear span, entire 30 feet from one end of the bridge to the other without any intermediate support. And that, it would be one big factor in the cost, because that's a pretty long span to do with wood.
Couldn't do something like have it from the center to the outside of the. I don't-
Well, what you would have to have are two very long beams along the sides. And then you would span between those beams with the roof structure.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Well, let's just moving on. I think, again, let me just take a moment to thank the staff, Barry and all his crew and Ben as well, because I think Ben got really very focused on this for the interim repair and beautification work that they did. It just was really fabulous. It made that whole area, Ben, look so much better for almost the entire summer.
Thank you.
And we're just all very grateful. Very grateful.
You did it quickly before.
Absolutely.
I don't know if there's anything more we can do today, other than we, need to probably gather some more information about the, and I'll, I'll ask Barry to try to bring some more information to us at our next meeting about narrowing the bridge versus widening the bridge, the feasibility of building the cover over the entire width of the bridge versus a narrower bridge. And, maybe we can get Jim involved with Barry if he's got some time. And so we'll just have more information. Again, I apologize, but all this is all new stuff. So, and it's all good news. So, being possible.
So one of the things we had talked about was fundraising for this project. And we can't do that yet. We have to have a plan.
Right.
So that's another reason for the importance of knowing where we're going. We'll have some money from the town, but I think our idea was to try to raise money additionally to take care of the additional cost.
Sure.
So it comes back to that vision of where we're going, 1, 2, 3 phases. How can we get to that point of knowing what that's going to look like and how much money we need to raise?
Well, I think we've got to make a final determination of the width of the bridge and get some sort of rough grasp anyway on which direction we're going in terms of the width of the bridge. And it sounds like the committee is set on the covered bridge, which I, don't argue with. But again, it could be done in 2 phases. We don't have to do it all now. We could do some rock columns now and some very nice things for a dedication honoring Dr. Graham and do the roof construction 4 years from now. 4 years is not all of it. And it'll be probably good year from now before we get the interim board. So, but you're right, we've got to get to a final plan. But I just think we need more information on it. And we probably need to get some sort of plan on what else we do besides the bridge and what else we want as part of that, Robin.
Ben, if we are the recipients of the Buncombe County COVID relief money, when would that be available if we find out January or February?
I don't know the exact date, but I would expect it would be sometime probably in either late June or early July.
And that's for, is it for $110,000?
$180,000.
You don't need to fundraise.
Tom, I think you're correct in that comment right now. And while I appreciate Mr. Summerfield's comments, but Robin, I think you made a good point when before we do anything, let's kind of do our homework between now and Buncombe County's announcement. And then we'll have a better grasp of what monies need to be raised or what steps we need to take, whether to leave the bridge width at its current size or narrow it down to focus. Because I believe actually it's around $190,000 that we asked Buncombe County for COVID. So if you've got that large cachet of money coming toward the town, you can do a whole lot of things with improvements in that area.
We can build a statue of Billy Graham bigger than the one at Ridgecrest.
Well, if we were to receive that money, I think it changes things dramatically and we wouldn't have to phase in. We would just go for it. And based on whatever plan that we draw up or get estimates on, or, so I think we have some work to do.
So Ben, could you clarify your comment earlier? You said we didn't pass the first round of the Buncombe County.
There were two funding cycles of, there were about 40 grants that were approved in late July or late June, early July. We didn't make that cut, but we are still in running for the award after the January 23.
There's no way of knowing what our chances.
No, sir. No, sir.
Who?
Well, I may be premature in estimating your question. Who makes that determination? It's the Buncombe County Board of Commissioners. And if any of you have any gateways to those commissioners, I would strongly suggest that you make contact with those Board of Commissioners, because you don't catch fish without your baits in the water. So, and I think Mr. Blake made a good comment earlier about it's kind of Montreat. And with all due respect, Montreat has the benefit of being somewhat self-sufficient in its approach to a lot of the problems it can address on itself. But again, Montreat sends a lot of money to the tax office in Buncombe County. And it's only right, in my opinion, that Montreaters get some of that money in return.
Well, the other point to make to the commissioners would be that we're not a closed community, that a lot of people use our natural resources for recreation.
As well as our infrastructure.
Exactly.
And that's been described in both grants.
Okay.
Who wrote the grants? You? Ben?
There were several people involved in that. But thank you.
Okay, well, it sounds like I think for the next six months anyway, our focus needs to be a plan. And the grants money will take care of themselves. And what we need to do is focus on the plan. Perhaps at our next meeting, I'll try to get as much information between now and then as I can about the bridge options and see what we can gather from that. And we'll really start the next meeting as putting together a plan.
And if I may say, the expansion of the area.
Right, a total area plan.
Yeah.
Total area plan.
And I'd like to say one other thing. Mason, thank you for all you do.
Oh, my.
I mean,
Thank
you're the brains and the brawn of the committee. We really appreciate it.
The bridge has been all of our work, so, we really are. It is amazing, and as I said, that we've ended up taking this long path of 5 years now. And here we are, but we're here, so let's roll, so. Okay, next meeting, I'm suggesting, 2 months from now, October the 19th, which is a Tuesday, I think it. I'm doing that in my head, but I know that October the 15th, a Saturday. 19th.
October the-
18th, it'll be the 18th, because the 15th is a Saturday. Which is the PHC Distinguished Lecture, which everyone needs to come. And so we'll shoot to meet then, if there's no objection, we'll look to meet then at 2:00 again. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if I may, before you get that motion, I would suggest that in the planning stage for this committee, I don't know how much bearing it would have on the grant funding with any type of substantial changes. But both grants that were applied for and one has been received, it did mention tearing down of the bridge. So I believe it's 12 foot in width. So I would kind of keep that in mind because I don't know, I don't think it would have a huge impact if we were to say that we're going to leave it at the same width as it is now. But both grants does state a narrowing of the
Okay.
bridge.
Change the FT to meter.
There you go. There you go.
Okay, no, that's,
Oops.
no, I understood. So we will do that. Definitely plug that in, Bill. Okay, another motion to adjourn.
Awesome.
Robin moves to adjourn. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like con? Motion carries. Thank you all for attending.